All right. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Stuart. Welcome to Jam Play. This is my 10-week series on tools and techniques, mostly for blues, but obviously, like I said last week, everything that we're doing here today is perfectly applicable to whatever style of music you're probably playing. And just a quick recap, last week I talked about all the things we're going to cover in the next 10 weeks, we've got 9 weeks left. Basically, we're going to be looking at all the components you need to sort of up your game to make sure you're playing the right stuff when it comes to playing blues guitar. And again, this week we're going to be concentrating on rhythm, which is what we did last week. We took a couple of stock important parts that are common to Chicago blues. We looked at the Jimmy Reed, probably the very first part that we all learn when we learn how to play blues. That feel, and then we did a single note line. Sort of shadows what the bass player is doing. And then we did a chord figure, a rhythm figure involving chords that comes from Muddy Waters, Otis Rush, stuff like that. I did. It's a movable figure. Just move it up. So those were the things that we concentrated on last week, and today we're going to elaborate on that a little bit more, and we're going to learn some new rhythm figures, rhythm parts, and we have there's a tab that goes along with this, and also we have a track that you can play along to, and also there are all four examples, different rhythm figures. Examples are available for you to listen to, so it's pretty complete. If you need to go back and reference anything, it's all there. So let's start with today's lesson. And one of the things, probably one of the biggest thing when it comes to playing a shuffle rhythm is where it comes from. Okay, you got this. You got this. You also have this. Which we call a flat tire shuffle, which is a part that's based on the and of the beat, the and of a quarter note. If you split a quarter note in two, you get 2 eighth notes. So the first note is silent, and the second note, the second eighth note, is the and of the beat, and that's the beat that gets played. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that's probably, I'm sure that's a part that you've all heard. If you've ever listened to Stevie Ray Vaughan, you've heard that. You hear that when I go, that's the upbeat. Down, up, down, up. And he was doing it all. And before Stevie came up with that, his take on doing that, pretty much guitar players were doing that bit. And like this. And I'm sure you've probably learned that. You've probably delved into it a little bit. But pretty much everything that we're going to do today comes from that idea of thinking about a rhythm that has an upbeat to it. It's not all square down on the beat like this. There are figures that have an upbeat component to them. And that's what we're going to look at today. The first rhythm that we're gonna talk about is something that going back to my days in New York, I had a friend of mine who used to refer to that rhythm as a Charleston rhythm. The Charleston being the old dance from the 20s, which was before all of us here, I'm sure. And if you were counting, a 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3. So 1 is the downbeat, and then the next beat is an upbeat. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's how we do it. So it's bop, 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 bop. Now that's the rhythm we're going to play. Now the other component of today's lesson has to do largely with chords and having a proper chord vocabulary, knowing the right chords to do when you're playing blues. Because unless you're playing in a trio situation, which I'm sure probably some of you are, but probably a lot of you aren't playing in a trio situation. To play a big fat G7 like that is going to take up a lot of room. And also what's going to happen is those bottom notes in the lower register are going to make things a little bit muddy with the bass player, and if you're playing with a keyboard player, it's certainly going to get in the way. So what you want to think about is editing the notes in that chord. So I'm going to show you a chord voicing today that I learned a long time ago. And actually I read, there was the late Herb Ellis, who was one of the greatest West Coast jazz guitar players that ever lived, an LA guy. This was a voicing that I got from him. And it's a G7, it's a dominant 7th chord with no root in it. So I'm going to play G7 and there's no root. What's in it is a 7th, which is F, a 3rd, which is B, and a 5th, which is D. And it's right here at the 3rd fret. 3rd fret, 4th string, 3rd string, 4th fret, 2nd string, 3rd fret. Yeah, you can put the tab on screen, please. So you're going to see this G7 right here. And this is a very, very, very handy chord. This is a chord you want to know you're going to get a lot of mileage out of it. You're going to get a lot of mileage out of it if you're playing blues, if you're playing R&B, if you're starting to play jazz, you're going to get... Because it's a really nice voiced chord that on the guitar, when you're playing with other people, it really speaks nicely because it doesn't have these low tones in it. It's right in the mid-range in the guitar, but it's in the really nice part of the mid-range, especially if you're playing in the key of G. Because obviously as you get higher in pitch, it brightens up. It brightens up a little bit. But even down here in the 3rd position, it has a nice sound to it. And get used to that sound and really get used to playing that. Now I'm going to show you the next chord that we're going to make sure you're up on. So we're going to talk about 9th chords, okay? And I'm going to go through a couple of different voicings for them. And you probably know this first voicing because this is generally the first 9th chord. That's my big Mel Bay Book 1 for all those of you who are old enough to remember. There'll be a finger pointing to the chord right there. So this would be the first 9th chord that I ever learned, and it's a root position chord because I'm playing C9 and I'm playing C with my 2nd finger. I'm playing E on the 4th string, 2nd fret. Now I'm using my 3rd finger to bar top 3 strings at the 3rd fret. And we're going to call that a root position C9. Because it is a root position. listen to this movement here. We've got G7, and all you got to do to grab this C9 is just come down like that. Now, if you're looking at the tab, if you can see the tab, you're going to see that I have the first inversion C9. Now, what's a first inversion? The first inversion means that the third is in the bass. So we're going to get rid of the C. We're not going to play C on the 3rd fret, 5th string. We're going to eliminate that. And we're just going to play E and then the top 3 strings that are barred at the 3rd fret. And that's still a C9. It's also technically, and not technically, it is in reality an E minor 7 flat 5. It's just another voicing for me. And E minor 7 flat 5 and C9 in terms of the blues are essentially the same chord. There's E minor 7 flat 5, there's C9. No difference really. But we're going to call this, we're still calling it C9. So the movement that we're going to do here is we're going to go from G7, this little triangle here at the 3rd fret. Now watch very carefully because I'm not even going to play the notes. I'm not going to play the notes, I'm just going to move my hand. So I'm just taking my first finger and it is going from the 7th, which is F, down to the 3rd of C, which is E. And I'm going to bar those top 3 strings. Okay? Now for D9, we're just going to simply move it up to the 4th and the 5th fret. Technically, actually it's the 4th position because our first finger is at the 4th fret. So there's D9, there's C9, and there's G7. All right, so we're going to put it together with the rhythm. So it'll be 1, we'll do it a little slower. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the feel. So I got a track here. We're going to play along with it. We're in the key of G. That's from the 5 chord. Here we go. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's that. We're going to let this kind of play in the background a little bit. Now, if we're going to just play that rhythm all the time, these are voicings that are used in jazz. Yes, most definitely. Answering that question, yes. To answer that question, these are voicings that are common to jazz, without a doubt. Especially when we play jazz that's a jazz blues, so to speak. So if you were playing this rhythm, this would be great to start off. You know, if you're if say a harmonica player, this is a medium tempo. This is a good rhythm for a medium tempo shuffle, which is what's playing. We're doing a medium tempo. We're not doing an up tempo jazz, like a jump blues or a more up tempo form of blues shuffle. We're pretty much, this is kind of a medium, nice easy medium tempo. And when I hear a drummer count it off, this is pretty much where I start, because I can be sure that the keyboard player is probably playing some upbeats, and those upbeats are getting emphasized somewhere else. So I'm going to play, my idea is to play a little bit less. I automatically try to edit what I'm doing before I even start playing it. And a lot of people ask, well, how do you get there? Well, some of it comes from experience, and some of it comes from the idea of, paying attention when somebody's counting out a song. And if somebody's counting out a tune and it's like this, 1, 2, 3, a 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. I hear the space. I know, I have a sense of, okay, this isn't going to be very, A, it's not going to be very fast, B, I need to do something simple. And this is a great simple rhythm for a good blues, for a good medium tempo shuffle. Now last week somebody asked me, how do you make something interesting that's so simple? And my answer to that was, well, you have to have good time. You have to have a really good sense of time. Not time like a metronome, not time like a clock, but a good sense of time that is good feel. Okay? And if you've got good time, then you enjoy the act of being supportive and being selfless, as I like to put it, and just be supportive to the players that you're playing with by just playing a good solid rhythm. And then they said, well, how do you know when to embellish that rhythm? Well, that's a good question. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about right now, because, I might not necessarily do this for the whole time. I'm going to turn the track up a little bit. Well, no, let me. Eventually, what's going to happen is I'm going to be thinking about it, and I'm going to go, okay, well, where can I start to go with this rhythm? Because maybe, the vocal is getting a little bit more lively. Maybe somebody's taking a solo, and I'm picking up what the soloist is doing. Well, and now it's time to think about, okay, you're sticking to that basic rhythmic approach, but you may want to embellish it so you may add something, you may take something away. In this case, you're probably going to add just a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean here. Turn this up a little bit, and we'll wait for it to come around. There's the 5 chord. Okay, so I'm going to play 12 bars of the rhythm. Embellishment. talk about what I did here. We're just swinging it a little harder. That's really what we're doing. Because I might, the soloist might be, he might start swinging it a little bit. You never know what it is. He might, start doing something rhythmically that gives you an idea. Maybe the drummer plays something that's answering that soloist. So we answer. We talk back to the soloist while we're accompanying them. We're giving them accompaniment, and we're also letting them know, hey man, I'm paying attention to what you're playing, and I'm trying to support what you're doing. And I'm doing that with an embellishment. Here's the figure. Bop, bop. This is definitely voice leading. Rest, rest. Does that sound like a horn section? Rest, rest. So that's one possible way to embellish things. It's all, it's taking an idea, and the basic idea is this. That's the basic idea, right? Now, we just add a little something in there. Doesn't that feel kind of reminiscent of a horn section? Ba-da-da-da. But we don't have a horn section, so now you're not loudly, but in a manner that the bass player, the drummer, and the soloist hear you, but not so blatantly loud that you're the loudest thing that's heard. But that little embellishment right there can mean a whole lot to the person who's soloing at that moment, because you're sort of nudging them along a little bit, because you're letting them know, hey man, I'm listening to you, I'm paying attention to what you're playing, I hear what you're doing, and I'm trying to give you as much rhythmic support as I can. So you start carrying on a dialogue rhythmically. We don't just carry on a dialogue with notes. We carry out a dialogue also rhythmically with the way that we support the other instrumentalists in the band. And again, to answer that question, yes, these are definitely voice-led chords, because if you listen, that's what I'm doing. I've got a D that's a common tone. That's my top note. So you've got some voice leading there that's nice. It's simple. It's simple, and it's not it's not something that stands out hugely, but it's also very supportive, harmonically speaking, to the other players that are playing, and it could be harmonically supportive to a vocalist. It could be harmonically supportive to the soloist at that time. So you want to keep that in mind. So let's move on here to another rhythm. This is going to be rhythm number 2, which is on one of the tracks here. And this one involves another voicing for a 9th chord. We're going to go back to this other 9th that I talked.
Hey everyone, it looks like we lost Stuart's feed for hopefully just a few seconds here. We'll try to get it back.
So we have a G9 with no root in it. And from bottom to top, these notes read B, F, which is 4th string, 3rd fret, A, which is the 9th on the G string, 2nd fret, and then D, which is 3rd string, D, 2nd string, 3rd fret. Now what we're going to do with this is we're going to edit this chord, because when pretty much any blues player that I've ever seen who plays rhythm, they're not going to play that chord. They're not going to play that bottom note on the 5th string. So we're going to edit that chord, and we're going to take that note out, and we're just going to play the 4th, the 2nd, the 4th, the 3rd, and the 2nd string. So we're playing F, A, and D. We've got the 7th, we've got the 9th, and we've got the 5th. And if you're the bass player and the bass player is hitting that root of G, well, there's your G9 chord. It just doesn't have a 3rd in it, because the 3rd is not crucial to this voicing. And it's not crucial to what we're going to play right now. So we are calling that, we're still going to call that G9. That is still called G9. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this voicing, and I'm sure this is a movement you've heard if you've heard the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore East in their version of Stormy Monday, or if you've heard Bobby Bland's version of Stormy Monday with Wayne Bennett on guitar, or T-Bone Walker doing it, or any thousands of blues tunes that have been written. You've heard this movement. So that's going from the 9th. If we move that up a whole step, we get a G6. That's the top of a G6 chord. That's actually the bottom of a G6 chord, because the root is on the 4th string. We take it down a whole step, we've got G9. So we got G9 sliding up to G6, G6 sliding back down to G9. Okay? I'm sure most of you probably know this chord, but if you don't, and this is the first time that you're learning this movement, well then good. This is a very important, this is one of the most important, they're all important parts, they're all important chord voices, but this one is especially doubly important. And we're going to talk about 2 ways to play it. We're going to do this. Now when we go to the 4 chord, we're still playing in this track I'm going to play to, it's the same track, is in the key of G. So when we go to the 4 chord, we're going to move this up to the 7th position, and slide it from the 7th to the 9th, back down to the 2nd to the 4th, and we're going to come all the way up here to the 9th, to the 11th, and back down. Now, instead of playing a 5 chord, I've heard a lot of rhythm guitar players, great like jazz rhythm guitar players who played with me, with great blues artists. Like I remember, I'm sorry, the name is escaping me right now, but the first bunch of times that I ever saw B.B. King, he had this phenomenal rhythm guitar player. He had a guitar player that was just amazing. He was a
Looks like we're having a little trouble with Stuart's feed again. Hopefully he will be right back. We'll try to get that back up for you.
and he might hit that G just to signify there's the downbeat, and then go back to that figure. Now, the other thing that I want to point out for the way we're going to play this and the way we're going to learn this is we're going to play this figure on the second beat of the measure. In other words, we're going to count 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1. In other words, it's coming in on the 2, the second beat of the measure. So 1 is silent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll just slide it up like that. Now, you're probably looking at it going, well, why isn't he playing the 4 chord here? Oh, you definitely hear this. You definitely have heard this movement in Steely Dan tunes. One I can think of offhand would be Black Cow. Black Cow off of Asia, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's Robin Ford. I think that's Robin Ford playing that. Oh, you hear that? You hear that? You hear that in Steely Dan tunes. You hear it a lot. You heard it. Probably heard it in other pop music. But Steely Dan certainly made use of that. They knew they were playing blues. You know, a lot of the stuff that they did was rooted in blues, believe it or not. But getting back to what I was saying, you're probably saying, well, why is this knucklehead moving all the way up here to do that? Well, I'm moving up to here because you should learn that that's also C9 to C6 to C9. And see that chord there. Now, obviously, the really easy way to approach playing this would be to go 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, and just play the top 3 strings at the 3rd fret and slide it up, and you're still getting C9. You're getting the top of a C9 chord up to C6, which is at the 5th fret. Now you go to the 5th fret, 4th, 3rd. So any way that you want to play it, whatever is easiest and the most convenient, obviously the most convenient way to play it, obviously the most convenient way to play that movement is to go to this very first, second inversion C9 that I pointed out. That's obviously the easiest way, and if you want to do that, that's fine, doesn't matter. The economy of movement is what we're talking about. But the reason why I stress learning it here is that so you also know that not only is that C9, well, there's A9, there's A flat 9, there's G9, there's C9, there's B9. So you're recognizing it all over the fretboard, and you're learning it, and that's really why I teach people to do that, because you want to recognize that chord in all 12 keys, because you never know what key you're going to be playing in. And you never know when that movement's going to come in handy, and you need to play that movement. All right? So let's play this together for a second. We'll play it around a little bit and get the feel of it, and we'll do it a little slower. And then we'll play along with the track, all right? So now you remember, if you need to tap your foot, if you need to count out loud, that's fine too. Believe me. It's no sweat off of me if you're counting off out loud. If you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, like that. If that's what you got to do, if that's what it takes, do it. That's what I say. All right? Let's play it. We'll do it a little slower right now, and we'll just get in the groove. You want you're slurring that chord because you're plucking the strings once, but at the same moment that you're plucking them, you're moving the chord. That's the movement. And you don't strum the second one. You let the momentum and the velocity that you're hitting it with make the volume to make the part come out correctly. All right? So let's do this a little slower. About a 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1. So let's play along with the track. I'm going to pull the tempo back just a little bit. Just a little. That's a little closer to where we were. Here we go. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Relaxed. Really concentrate on just going up a whole step and back down. Just slide it up. Keep your eye, I'm addressing the person who asked this question now. Keep your eye on that fret. And look where your hand has to go. You're only going up 2 frets. So that's that part. And to the person who's asking this question, if you're having any problems, I'm sure, you know, I've known of people that have had that issue before. You're going further than you have to go. Keep your eye on really focused on where your hand has to go, and don't even strum it. Just take your hand without playing it, and just move it up a whole step. Move it up 1, 2 frets. Just go like that. And do it slow, because that's all I'm doing right now. I'm not even strumming it, obviously, because you wouldn't hear it. Okay? Just like that. I know a lot of people that have had trouble learning chord voicings, being able to change from chord to chord, and basically what I tell people is that what you have to do is you got to, do it slow and don't strum the chord. Just make your hand do what it's supposed to do, and get that down, and get that feel of what your fingers. Since you don't have to pick your fingers up to play this first movement, now all you got to do is just use one finger to get that. Now you're using those 3 again to get that. Now you're using one finger to get that, one finger to get that, and the 3 to get this. When you look at it like that and you break it down, it's much easier, and you also see how simple it is, how pitifully simple it really is. Sometimes the simplest things are the hardest things to master, without a doubt, you know. But I understand, you know, I mean, look, I'm telling, the thing that I just showed you was something that I came up with when I was but a wee small child, first learning how to play the guitar, and I couldn't get my fingers to go from C to F to G. So what I did was, instead of playing it, I just sat there and looked at my hand, and I realized and figured out what I had to do to make the next chord, to make that F chord. Well, all I had to do was move this over and bar this. So I just went over and like that, and back to C. And to play G, all I had to do was that. And when you just do it very slowly, it's called muscle memory. That's what you're doing. You're training your hands, your fingers, your muscles. This muscle located right here in the cranium is also is telling you what you have to do. So you do this little simple movement, you do this very simple exercise without strumming the guitar. You do not strum the guitar. Just make your left hand, your fretting hand, if you're a right-handed person, just make your right hand do what it's supposed to do. And think about where your fingers have to go in order to make that next chord. Well, the same holds true for this little movement here. You don't have to pick your fingers up at all off the guitar. All you got to do is just slide your hand up 2 frets. So do it slowly, and that should help. And to the person who asked that question, if you want to tell me, you can tell me whether that's helping or not. Okay? So that's that feel. That's that rhythmic figure. And this very important that you know those 9th chords. Let's look at rhythm number 3. Which is basically the same thing as rhythm number 1. And we're doing these triads. It's basically the same thing. Let's move on to rhythm number 4. Oh no, that's this one. Rhythm number 4 is another rhythm that has a downbeat, and 2, 1, 2, 3. It's got a downbeat and upbeats in it, and it's a little bit more than this. It's just a little bit more than that rhythm. But again, it's a rhythm that's not busy, it doesn't get in the way, and it's very supportive. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at that 6 voicing, which is G, B, and E, and G. That's the 4th string, 5th fret, 3rd string, 4th fret, 2nd string, 5th fret, and 3rd string, 3rd fret. That's a G6. Alright? Now, I don't think this next chord is on the tab, but you should know it. And it's just a triad C7. And it's a C7 with no root in it. It's just like this G7. It's got the 7th, the 5th, and the 3rd. And it also has a common tone between the 1 chord and the 4 chord. That E is a common tone. So you're only going to change 1 finger. And we're going to leave out that. You can play this, you can play that G, or you can just play the B flat. But we're going to play G6, which, like I said, has its root on the 4th string, 5th fret. Now we're going to go to C7. And again, you can play this as a bar chord with your first finger barring the top 4 strings of the guitar. And then making sure that you're playing G here on the 4th string, 5th fret, and E on the 2nd string, 5th fret. Now if you want to keep that G on top on the 1st string, that's okay. Or you can eliminate it and just play that triad. And the same holds true if you move the whole thing up a whole step. You got D7. And then I'm going to show, and then we're going to do, I'm going to show you a nice little trick to insert when you're at the 5 chord, going from the 5 chord back at the end of the turnaround, going from the 5 to the 1. Okay? But this time, we're going to play, here's the rhythm we're going to do. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, and 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 2. So it's a 2-bar phrase, is what this is. It's 1 and 1. Okay? So it's a 2-bar phrase. It's a 2-bar pattern. It's not just a 1-bar pattern. It's a 2-bar pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 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 3, 4, down, up, down. So it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, and 4, 1, 2, 4, 1. Okay. Now, I said I'm going to show you a little. I'm going to show you a little chord melody thing. Check this out. Here's another voicing we're going to learn right now for a dominant 7th chord. This is another 4 string, just like that's a 4 string. That's a 4 string. This is a 4 string dominant 7th chord. The root is on the 4th string, so in essence we're barring the top 4 strings, and then we're playing with our 3rd finger, we're playing D on the 3rd string, 7th fret, F with our 2nd finger on the 6th fret, 2nd string, and then B on the 1st string, 7th fret. And this is a great voicing because if you're playing with a keyboard player, bass, drums, maybe a harmonica, man, you play this chord, sonically that little sucker is going to cut right over the din of the band really nicely. And you can use, obviously, any kind of rhythm. It's nice, it moves. It's got a nice ring when you go from there. Because the voice leaning, you're going from there to there. nice movement on the 4th string. Alright? So what we're going to do is we're going to play that rhythm. We get to the 5 chord, 4, and we're going to go, we're going to play that G7, and then we're going to play this diminished 7th chord, which we're going to call it A7 flat 9, which is the same thing as a B flat diminished or a G diminished. We'll call it G diminished because you're not really changing that G as a common tone. So we're going to keep that, our first finger on the 4th string, and we're going to move our other fingers down till we get that diminished 7th chord, which is reading G and then D flat, our flat 5, on the 3rd string, 6th fret. We've got our 6th, which is E on the 2nd string, 5th fret, and then we got B flat with our pinky at the 6th fret. And then we're going to grab that D9 right there. So you get this really nice movement right there. That leads you right back to there. So listen to the way the voices on the guitar are moving. And if somebody's soloing, you're doing that behind somebody's solo on a turnaround, that's a nice, that's a really nice compliment right there. Let's see, we've got a question here. I definitely advise keeping your hand moving at all times if you can. It certainly helps with, it certainly does help with the timing, and being able to keep the rhythm steady. And it also helps you maintain your sense of time. Okay? So let's do this rhythm here. I'm going to do that movement. That's going to come really at the end of measure. It's coming in around the 3rd beat. It's coming in around the end of 3 or the downbeat of 3. I got to think about it a little bit. I've done it so many times that I don't really think about it when I do it. I just play it. That's 3, 4. So it's coming in at the beginning of the measure. Be coming in at the beginning of measure number 12. So this is taking you back to the top of the form. So we're going 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. Do it with me. To the 4. One more time. Alright, let's play along with the track and try and do this. Remember to keep it real steady. Keep it real steady. Tap your feet. Tap your feet and make it as relaxed as you possibly can. That's the key to it. Just play relaxed. Here we go. track. That's that one. Believe me, you can get a lot of mileage out of that one. Even at a slightly brighter tempo also. Plus that sixth voicing is really complementary to soloists. So you got, what have you got there? Well, we've got some voice leading going on, and we've got a nice rhythm. And this is all stuff this is all important stuff when it comes to being supportive. And getting back to that question that somebody asked me last week, like how do you keep something, how do you stay interested in something that's so simple? Well, you stay interested by playing in time and listening to the other soloists, listening to the rhythm section, listening to your bass player and your drummer. If you're playing with a keyboard player, keep your ears open, because you're going to hear people do things and it's going to spark you. If you've learned these different chord voicings, you've thought about these different rhythms, you're playing around with embellishing things a little bit. These are the things that start to make you improve in ways that you didn't expect to improve. There are hidden little gems that happen. If you practice them and you're listening, which is so important to being able to have fun playing music, is to listen to other people when they're playing. That's part of the joy of it. Come on back next week, and I left one thing out, but I will review that. I'll go over that chord for you next week and that little movement. But I hope you had a good time. I know I did. It's been a pleasure to hang around with you this afternoon. I'll be back here next Wednesday again at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm in California, so it's 4 o'clock for me. But we're going to touch on this some more. We're going to talk more about blues vocabulary next week. So enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next week. Take care.